Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Marion County Espresso TV. I'm your host Steve Woodhouse. Joining me today is Public Works Director Wilf Nixon.
Hi.
Welcome, Wilf.
Thank you.
So Wilf, you've been here for about 3 months now in this role, right?
A little less, but yes, about that, yeah.
And this is actually the first time I've had the chance to catch up with you. It's been a crazy time.
Yes.
But tell me about yourself. You know, what brought you here to Pella?
Well, been a long journey. The last 30, well, it's nearly 40 years now. We've actually lived in Iowa, but my wife and I both grew up in England, did all my schooling over there and came over to the US afterwards to work doing some research, first of all in Hanover, New Hampshire, and then in the late 80s we came out to Iowa, and we've lived since the late 80s. We lived in Iowa City. I was at the university there in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department for a while. I'd gone there because they were one of the good places in the world to do research on ice, and ice was my chosen field. And over time, I grew to learn a lot about the challenges of getting ice off the roads in the wintertime, which we all know is a big issue here in Iowa and elsewhere. And because of that, I learned a lot about public works in general. And I think, certainly for me, if you learn about public works, you learn about a really wonderful group of people who are very dedicated to serving their communities, and you realize it'd be great fun to be involved in helping them to do those things. So when I saw the position advertised here, and I think it was in June, my wife and I did some talking about it and decided this would be a great thing to look into, and looked into it, and much to my delight and pleasure, they decided that I was the right fit. So that's why I'm here.
So this is your first time serving as a public works director? But
that's correct, yes.
it sounds like you're very qualified, you know.
Well, you know, there are qualifications and qualifications.
Yeah.
I have all the bits of paper that you might want. That doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified for anything. You know, there are many, and this is not to disparage baristas, because they are an important part of my life. But there are many baristas who have great pieces of paper. I've learned a lot. I've had chance over, well, for example, over the last decade, I've been writing articles for the American Public Works Association's monthly magazine, and trying to share good experience that everyone has around the place. And there's a lot of good knowledge. Most of it learnt the traditional way in the School of Hard Knocks.
So what first brought you to the States then, after your school?
To be honest, it was a job. You know, I think like all of us at certain stages in our careers, you need a job, and you look to see what you can find. And you know, when you finish your schooling, you're young, you're excited, you're going to change the world. And again, my wife and I, we talked about it, and we thought, well, if we travel now when kids are young, we can go see places. But if we don't do it now, we won't do it in 10 years' time. So we took the risk and took the plunge, and we didn't really know anything about the US. Grew up in the UK, where the image of life in the US was very much driven by TV shows like Starsky and Hutch and Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay, which, as you know, give a perfect representation of life in the US. And
you knew I should have worn my cowboy hat today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we then turn up in rather sleepy Hanover, New Hampshire, which is neither Dallas nor Starsky and Hutch territory. So it was a wonderful culture challenge, I would call it. Some people might say culture shock, but no, I think it was a challenge. We had to learn a lot.
Yeah.
I believe it was Churchill who said that the UK and the US are two nations separated by a common language, and so we we worked our way through that. And yes, there were a number of interesting and embarrassing linguistic challenges, but we got through those. And as you live for longer in the US, you start realizing there are things that you just don't have elsewhere in the world. An example which I realize is a hot topic right now, but has always been there, is freedom of speech. Sadly, in my own country, my country of my birth right now, I should say, you don't have that free speach.
And I've read a lot about that.
That's really sad.
It is.
And I'm very, very happy to now be here in the US and be a citizen in the US. So.
And so, which part of England? Because my ancestors trace back to Blackpool, England. So I didn't know.
Well, all of England is close. It's not that big. First time we really took the kids back when they were old enough to understand these things, we pointed out that the area of Iowa is about 90% of the area of England. So it's not terribly big, but yeah, I'm from the south. I grew up about 30 miles north of London, and my wife is a northerner. She grew up in Leeds, so we've had to deal with all those issues of a north-south relationship. I don't think they're quite the same as they would be here in the US, but there are still barriers, and we've worked our way through those.
So how many kids do you have now? Are they still at home?
We have 3 kids. We have one of them, he lives with his wife and 4 sons in Iowa City. He works over there. One of them lives up in the rather confusingly named Wyoming, Iowa. That really throws relatives back in England. They're saying, wait, and they get very confused about that. She actually has a couple of restaurants that she runs up there. And then the third one, she lives down in Phoenix, Arizona, and is a geographics information systems expert down there. So they come back lots. We had them over for Christmas Day and all those good things. So we are very lucky in that regard. I'm very aware not all families manage to have as much connectivity as we do. So that's great for us.
Great. So what do you think about Pella so far? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I absolutely love it. It's it is classic American town with a number of unique add-ons. Let's put it that way. And I think one of the unique add-ons that struck me right from my very first visit here was how seriously people in Pella take the history of Pella, which is wonderful. And I'm living in an apartment not far from the Sunken Gardens, and there's the little Tuttle walkway with a lot of information down there. And you realize that people love the fact that they know where they came from. They know why they're here. Yep. They know what brought their families here. And really build that up. And a lot of traditional businesses and ways of thinking, and some of it impacts us as well. People want brick streets. I get that. Now, I will tell you from the point of view of removing snow and ice, brick streets are not your friend, but brick streets are important, so that's what we'll do. I think the other thing, aside from the history, which I really value and love, there is a strong community here.
Yes.
It's and you realize that a whole bunch of people have a very strong commitment to preserving and building that community. And in a very interesting way, it's not inward looking. There seems to be a strong recognition you have to grow to survive. And that means you're going to bring new people in, and how do we welcome them? How do we make that work? what things do we need as a community to bring more people in, that's very strong and very good idea. It's also the dedication of people. We said at the last council meeting, we said goodbye to the councilman who had served for 48 years.
Mark DeYoung, everybody, just in case you forgot.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Huge commitment to the community there.
Yeah.
I think also from my point of view, one of the jobs of a director of public works is to be a steward of the infrastructure that the town is built around, the roads, the sanitary sewer, all those other wonderful bits and pieces. And when you're part of a community that is concerned about its history, that understands the importance of that infrastructure, understands the need to be good stewardship is very important here. It's not just throw money at it and hope some of it sticks. It's no, let's invest. So we're very much thinking, building the strongest data-based understanding of where we are with our infrastructure, so that we can do the best with, everyone has constrained funds going forward, so that every year we're trying to ensure that Pella is more prepared for their future rather than less prepared. And that's kind of fun to do that. That really is. I have to say, and you're quite right, I've not been a director of public works before, but I have had so much fun in my time here already. And a large part of that is the folk I get to work with.
Right.
The staff here, my immediate reports, are all wonderful. And the teams they have under them are second to none. They're absolutely brilliant folk who have no problem with the very strong service side of this. For example, Christmas Eve is a city holiday. And a couple of folk needed to come in to do something on Christmas Eve morning. And, I was thanking them for it. And it was, no, that's no problem. That's what we do. We are here to serve the community. Right. You've got to love that.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about your, coming in fresh and new. I'm sure your team has been very helpful in getting things rolling and helping acclimate you to the job, right?
Oh, hugely. And there are things inevitably, and one of the things I promised myself was, I need a good 3 months at the least to learn about what the issues are. And there are going to be internal issues and external issues, lots of things happening. One of the things we see, EPA have decided over the last few years that what they call lead service lines, which are water lines through lead pipes, have to be replaced, which is a good thing. And it turns out here in Pella we have about 400 of those. Well, what that means is we have to plan over a 10-year period from 2027 through 2037 to replace those. And to my way of thinking, if you've got a city block where you've got maybe 10 of these lead service lines to replace, it doesn't make sense to dig 10 holes. You need to think in terms of replacing the whole block, provided, of course, we haven't done that recently. When you're doing that, you need to think in terms, obviously, replace your water supply, replace your sanitary sewer, make sure any stormwater sewers we have are in good shape. All of those things have to fold into that. So part of my work in this initial time has been, okay, how big is this problem? Where are these? Well, what a surprise, they're in the old parts of town. Many of the areas where they're at, we are going to need to replace rebuild the street. And we have about 100 blocks where we're going to need to rebuild the streets, or at least do something in them. Now, that gets a little expensive. So we've got to figure out, how do we build a strategy that gets this done as efficiently as possible? Can we, if we get that strategy in place, can we go outside and see what funding sources we might find from here, there, and everywhere? And I'll say, partly tongue-in-cheek, if you want to sponsor some lead service lines, we have to think innovatively in terms of funding, because an approximate cost for replacing rebuilding a block is about $500,000.
Yeah.
If you've got 100 of those to do, you've got a $50 million bill, and you've got that over 10 years, and that's $5 million a year. And at that point, people, their face drains, and they think we can't do that. We have to do this. We have to find a way to make this happen, so that we can, again, it's investing so that we have infrastructure that will keep us going for the next 150. Well, Pella was founded in 1847, right? So that's nearly 180 years now, 179 this year. So we need to do some investing in that infrastructure. Of course, it's had stuff over time, but whatever we do has to last a good long time. And interestingly enough, one of the little wrinkles is bricks in the street. There may be certain streets that we want to put bricks on. Now, there are other streets where we have brick, but it's under asphalt right now. Right. So we need to set up the order. So if we're going to do that, we do the streets where we've got the buried bricks, harvest those bricks, make sure they're in good shape, and then we can use them for the other bits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, always reuse if you can.
Yeah.
Has the EPA given you like a deadline to get that done, or offered or set up a fund that we could compete for some grants or something to help us pay for this?
The EPA has set up a fund, a requirement that this be completed by 2037. So that's that 10-year time frame.
I was going to say, we have a few years.
Except you have to do 10% a year. Right. I think they foresaw that. There is inevitably, there's a court case ongoing. They've been challenged on this, and one of the things is we just can't do it in 10 years. Well, maybe not. At the moment, as the law stands, we have to consider that it should be done by then. And that's why I want to get a really strong plan in place, because my guess is there will be some funding made available for this. And if we have a really good plan in place, then we're in much better position to go and seek some of that funding. There's no guarantee it'll be there, in which case that's going to be challenging, but we'll figure that out. We'll make sure that we get that done. I wish it were as easy as waving a wand and suddenly you've got a nice new street, and of course we all know it's not. It's never that simple. But we have to build a plan. We have to find people who can do that. I mean, if you think about that, we're dealing with between 8 and 10 blocks of reconstruction a year. Yeah. That's a lot. That is a huge amount. And we add a few constraints on ourselves in time as well. You might think, we can begin in April. Well, not if we're anywhere near downtown. We've got tulip time. So we have to do those things and various other bits and pieces. It will be a challenge, but I think it's one that we can manage and make work. So
where are we at in planning the lead line replacements?
Well, what's been good is anytime we have been doing some street work, like for example in Lincoln Street right now, when we put in a new water line, we make sure we replace any lead lines in those areas. So I want to make sure that in the next, basically this calendar year, probably our next fiscal year, we develop this detailed plan so that we can start funding this and getting the work done beginning in the... It'd be wonderful if we could do it in calendar year 27. I'm not sure if we can do that because I'm not sure how quickly we can get the design for the rebuilds done, but we'll see. We have also to give some concern to what the most critical needs are. The good thing is that many of the, we always have a 5-year capital improvement project in place, and many of the parts of that are they jibe very well with what we need to do there. So we can basically start on those, get those going, and then really dive into our bigger plan after we've had a year of really planning and figuring out how we're going to pay for all of this. So that really is the big challenge right now. But yes, I think we can start seeing, I hope, in 27 that we're getting some building done. So,
and of course, I'm sure you'll be discussing all that when council will start holding their work sessions for the budget here. I don't know the date that those start, but
yeah,
I'm sure that'll
soon.
be
Yes. Yeah. And again, I'll be honest, I didn't know the extent or scope of the challenge. I don't think anybody here, till we sat down and started crunching the numbers, realized, hey, we're talking 100 blocks here. Once you see those sorts of figures, then you gulp, you get a bit more coffee, you sharpen your pencil, and you see what can we do to make that happen, because those are real serious concerns. But so that's one of the things facing us. I think, like any community, there are other things. We're seeing wonderful growth. I think the city plan has called for up to 1,000 new dwellings over a certain period of time, and we're seeing a lot of development going on. Those are good things, as long as we make sure that we keep our eye on, can the people who are going to be living there get to where they want to be going? What do we have to do about traffic patterns? The standard traffic pattern, especially for a heavily gridded town like Pella, is everything comes into the center and then goes from there. And over time, I think we would expect that to change, because people don't want to go into the center and go out. If you are on the north side and you want to go over to the west side, why should I have to come into the center? Well, right now, because there's no other way. But over time, we may need to think about that. With the new rec center going in, there will be people looking to go to the east side that hadn't had need to go there before. So how are we going to make sure those traffic flows are accompanied? Now, those become sort of 10 to 20 year scenarios and fold into the longer term planning. But we have to fold them in, otherwise we're going to be stuck and going, wow, I wonder why there's so much traffic in the central square. We can't.
See, we already hear about like Washington Street, the congestion on Washington, and so do you have any immediate plans for addressing Washington Street's heavy traffic, or what are your thoughts on that, I guess?
One of the challenges we face, I think, with any street, whether it's Washington Street or other, is they began life as a street.
Right.
And now they're sort of almost a corridor, but not quite. And so we have to look into ways of how do we turn a street into a corridor. We're adding all sorts of things along there. Do we have to widen it? If so, do we have to widen it everywhere or just part of the way? When you're in town, we're probably constrained by right-of-way concerns. You can buy more right away, but that gets very difficult. Let's put it that way. If we are looking at major intersections down there, what's the best way to handle them? You know, for example, out by 163, we just put in new traffic lights there, which, if you're coming off 163, are wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, if you're used to going straight through, you may be a little frustrated because now you have to wait for the people turning off 163. We're going to be making those sorts of balancing acts all the way along. I've no idea if it's even feasible out there, but one of the good ways of improving both safety and traffic flow along corridors is to use roundabouts. Now, a lot of people don't like roundabouts here.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm one of those people that don't like roundabouts.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay. I understand. I grew up, I learned to drive on roundabouts. Yeah. In England, even our roundabouts have roundabouts. There is a famous roundabout in a place called Hemel Hempstead that I really suggest you never go to, because you will get sucked into this roundabout where every entrance to the roundabout has its own little roundabout, and it's extremely complicated to get through that. But roundabouts have great reasons for having them, in that they reduce what they call conflicts. If you look at a classic intersection, there are all sorts of ways in which one car can hit another. In a roundabout, you reduce those significantly, and in general, when collisions do occur, both vehicles are going in the same direction, so you avoid the whole T-boning thing. There are two challenges with them. One is they tend to take more space than a classic intersection, and secondly, a lot of people are not used to them, so don't understand how to get through them efficiently. And that's an education issue. We're seeing more and more of them over here. There are, in the right place, they are great tools. They're not the answer everywhere. And I'd be the first to say that if you go over to Europe, there are examples of roundabouts that are excessive. They either have way too many of them, or they've just gone totally crazy on the traffic flow through them. But in the right place, they are very useful tools. Do they belong on Washington Street corridor? I'm not sure. I think that's something we would need to do a detailed, have a really good look at what the traffic flows are, what we expect the traffic flows to be 30 years from now, and how we can best manage that, because ultimately people want, roads that are streets now but turning into corridors need help to get through that growth process, and we have to plan that growth for them. So it's going to be an interesting challenge. I think we've got the University Street extension that will be starting later this year. Then we've got a project on Oskaloosa Street going out that way, and we have another one on University Street that we want to look at. There's a number of areas along there where, again, thinking in terms of a corridor, and then I think Washington Street is the next corridor we really need to take a good look at and see what we can do to make sure it's meeting the needs of today and tomorrow as we go along there. The city is growing, which is great. A lot of growth out on that west side. Those folks are going to want to come into town, so we need to find a way to do that.
So how do you look at that challenge? Are you excited about that challenge, about planning for, what is already a growing community, planning ahead for the next 30 years for us here in Pella?
Oh, that's incredibly exciting. Anytime you get a chance to do that. I have to to a degree, rein myself in because that's, it's very easy to get very enthusiastic and have me putting roundabouts everywhere. Don't want that. So, but there are other things as well. It's an opportunity for the city. I don't know are you at all familiar with Coralville?
Slightly, yeah. I've gone there for a lot of tournaments, state tournaments.
There you go. Well, the Coralville Strip used to be a major eyesore. And over the last 30-odd years, they've completely rebuilt that strip.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens quickly, but now along the whole length, there is this look and feel. It's clearly a coherent corridor, I guess you would say. And I think anytime we're doing these things, we need to be thinking in terms of, okay, this is Pella. What is it along this corridor that will speak to people of Pella? Is it, as we have in some of the downtown areas, brick streets? Well, probably not, because that doesn't go too well. But it might be brick crosswalks at times. It could be, I'm sure, I'm not gifted artistically. So there are going to be many other things. But it seems to me we have two iconic symbols here. We've got windmills and we've got tulips. Yeah. And we better be able to make something iconic out of those for that corridor, for anything that we do. And I think that's an exciting thing. I think we're also, and this is in broader terms, mobility and the notion of living where you work. There is some degree in which it's going back, yes, you want to live close to where you work, whereas before it might have been acceptable to travel a long way. But for some jobs, where you live and where you work do not have to be connected anymore. And that presents enormous opportunities for communities like Pella. We are pockets of calm in what is an increasingly uncalm world. And we need to be thinking about that. That becomes a key selling point. And it's not that people would be here and going back and forth to Des Moines every day. They'd be here every day. This would be their community. Now, they might once a month or twice a month go fly off somewhere, through the Des Moines airport, but this is where they live. This is where their children are. This is their community. And that's going to be very important for them. So what do we do to further strengthen the wonderful things we already have here, the history, the commitment, build that and build more people coming in. So
you've given us a lot to think about.
Well, I've been given a lot to think about by the city of Pella, and as you can tell, I hope I'm thoroughly enjoying my thinking.
Yeah, it seems like you are. So yeah. So
awesome.
Well, it's been great chatting with you.
Likewise.
I'm sure that we'll be talking more in the future, probably for another episode of Espresso TV in the future.
Yep.
But welcome to Pella.
Thank you.
And Monty wanted me to ask you if you'd be willing to do some voiceover work for him for future Pella TV projects.
Absolutely. We can make that happen. Just be aware, the accent is a wonderful thing. It makes me more believable. And my wife says that's not always a good thing.
All right. Well,
awesome.
It's good getting to know you a little bit more.
Likewise.
Welcome to Pella. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you all for joining us.